went to full, but I usually run one. I run one for that.
All right. And the first thing we do is go around and tell who's in attendance and where are they located. So Brenda Stumble, I am at Ypsilanti Township. Debbie?
Debbie Swanson, present virtually, Ypsilanti Township.
Gloria?
Gloria Peterson, Ypsilanti Township at my home.
Stan Eldridge?
Stan Eldridge, Treasurer, Ypsilanti Township.
And Heather Rowe.
Heather Jo Rowe, Ypsilanti Township, present.
All right. And like I stated, trustee Newman said that he will be late. And I haven't heard from Jimmy, but if I do, I'll let you know. The first item on the agenda is to discuss the board ethics policy. So there's a memo in everyone's packet, and I'm not sure if people have had time to review it or not, but this was previously determined to be an importance to this board. So Debbie went on and found an actual example from the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners, and there's a memo in the packet. So if the board, Debbie, would you like to read this, or do you want the board just to ask questions? Because this is a work session. We're just here to discuss, right?
Yeah, I wasn't planning on reading the whole thing. I just wanted to give people a chance to give feedback on items, what they were thinking. So I know that it's something that the previous board was looking at. I looked and tried to see what other policies I could find online. And this one I thought was like the most concise. So it was concise, it was kind of organized. The part that talks about like it being reviewed, and it reminded me a little bit of like some of the review that was done with the trustees at our first meeting. So I thought that was an easy way to incorporate that, sharing it with people the way, because that was similar to what was done with us as new onboarding with some people, to be able to go over it, whatever policy we determine is acceptable. And then there's also a copy of what Monica Ross Williams had also shared previous on the last board. So I want to give her recognition for starting that process and sharing something before this got here. And then I wasn't sure, the attendance policy seems like it goes along with this. So I didn't know if people wanted to add that into the policy or have them as like policies that are grouped together. I'm not sure where that policy is held. If the ethics policy or an ethics policy was approved, it seemed to me that those would go together, that would be part of it. So the one that's the draft, the memo said is actually what the County Board of Commissioners has approved with a few changes to match Ypsilanti Township. Brenda reached out to them, asked if we could have a copy, and also asked if they would be, if that was something like we could use as our template to start with. And I believe Supervisor Stumble, they said that would be okay for us to do.
Yep, they sure did. So is there a discussion? It's really hard to have a discussion on a Zoom, but.
Madam Chair, I have my hand up.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I just want to know, the attendance policy, is that in the bylaws?
It is a policy that was adopted by the township board previously.
Right.
And what year was it? It's 2016.
Okay, so I guess my only question is with attendance policy, with this coronavirus and doing Zoom, can we or think about that in case, there's so many times Zoom went out and, you're trying to fight to get in or to the meeting, and could that be waiver or something at that point? You're really trying to get on the Zoom and everything happens,
Yeah, when this policy was adopted, Zoom wasn't even considered. If it was, we would have probably bought stock in it, but, so you're saying possibly adding if there's technical difficulties,
Mhm.
is that?
I mean, that's correct, Madam Chair, and there's been a time.
That's a
my
good
computer-
point, yeah.
Yeah, I just tried to get on, and like a half hour before, they hit something on textile, blew up everything. There's nothing I could have done to get in. So I mean, it's just something to think about for the board.
Yeah,
And when that happens, or some technical things at your home, you can't get in, you're fighting to get in, you can't get in. So it's just something to think about.
and the intent behind the attendance policy, and Stan, you were here, I think you were too, were you here, Heather? I don't think so.
It was right before, but I remember the,
Intent behind it, yeah, it was for township trustees, any elected official. Like if you missed so many board meetings, it didn't matter because it's salary, everyone was paid. So in the past, there were some trustees that had missed like a year, and at one of them actually moved to another state, and it wasn't by Zoom, so they couldn't attend, and there was no way of not paying them for that because it was a salary. And Stan, jump in anytime if I'm misstating anything. So what this did is that this had an attendance policy so that that wouldn't happen in the future. So
Right.
that was the intent behind the attendance policy.
Yeah, I actually wrote that portion for the trustees. And it's exactly like Brenda mentioned. We just had some people in certain cases that would lose their primary election in August and we would not see them again. But yet there was no recourse to save the taxpayers' monies. So I think it would be easy just to add under 7, you could have a 7A that just says in cases where the board is not allowed to meet in public due to whatever the circumstances, you certainly have the board has the right to waive that attendance policy if there's, technical difficulties or Zoom. And I think that's an easy addition to it. In respect to the first two, I thought Monica did a nice job, but I really like the way Debbie laid it out. It's really easy to read. It seems to cover every area. So thank you for doing that. I think it's well done. So
point of clarification, Debbie just collected it and revised it for the township, but really the nod to the work goes to the county board of commissioners. But I agree that it looks very clear and well organized. There were a few things I wasn't sure about. I'm trying to think which one it was that I wasn't sure about the application for the township. Like there is a section about like the removal part, and I wasn't sure that's going to need legal review because I know that there is there are limitations to what can happen, but I did think it at least laid out some kind of a procedure, whether that's applicable to township. I'm not sure. It was found to be applicable to county elected officials, so I don't know what that would mean. But I don't want to take credit for I found it versus wrote it.
Good find, good find. I do know that the intent behind the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners reason for adopting their policy is because they had one county commissioner that was actually applying for another job while he was a county commissioner. And because on section 2.9, it talks about a trustee may not apply for employment at the township while serving in office for 6 months following the end of their term of office. I think that's the only reason that is there. That was the intent behind, I think, the intent in case they were, as elected officials, full-time elected officials, we don't want to have the ability to set up getting a job. You know, you don't want to do that. Like what you do during office, I guess you can, according to, I think you can during this, right? I don't know. Yeah, I think we're gonna.
Well, I think it's well written and hopefully we can get it move it from a draft to a vote soon.
And it goes on to say the board may provide an exception to the 6-month employment application by a 2/3 vote. So if the board wanted to allow someone that is elected, because I know years ago that happened, there was a trustee that was made purchasing director and part of HR.
Hmm.
So I do know that that has occurred in the past.
Okay, thanks.
Other, there are sanctions like Debbie talked about and recommendation to the governor for removal. So that's a point we have to have, you know, township attorney Winters look at. I agree, Deb. Heather.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you also. I think it's extremely well written. And I appreciate that. Even though you gave all the county commissioners the credit, but thank you. And I was just wondering if, I'm not sure, I guess if Attorney Winters needs to review it, but I was just going to suggest that, you know, we could, if we all agreed to move it to the agenda for tonight to vote on, I would feel comfortable doing so. I guess it could be contingent upon attorney approval. Doug, I know you love that when we do that.
If I find my hand button, I don't know what's that.
Doug.
What I was going to suggest, I think, because there's a combination of policies that are kind of being linked together and maybe even folded into one another. I thought it might be worthwhile to at least have these policies reviewed by myself and HR manager Karen Wallen. And that way we could possibly do, I don't know, I don't want to say a red line or some kind of a assemblage of, so that they're not in conflict or they flow together, because there's different policies, and whether it's attendance policy, which also can impact different types of sanctions. So that was one thought. I think that Trustee Swanson indicated that she was hoping to have it on the agenda. I thought in May, was that the target? Was it May? And if that's the case, this is already being April. I thought that maybe that might be worthwhile for myself and HR manager Wallen to take a look to make sure we're not having anything adopted here that might be in conflict with other parts of our policies and procedures. Just a thought.
Sounds good.
And when you're checking for that, Attorney Winters, will you please check the part where it like refers to the attorney? I wasn't sure. They call it corporate counsel at the county. I don't know what the proper terminology for you. I put township counsel, but I'm not sure if that's accurate. So I would want you to take a good look at the way the terminology they used, and could share their copy, but I'm sure you know how you call what you're called.
And on Article 4 acknowledgement, when it talks about at the first organizational meeting of the Board of Trustees in January of each year, all trustees shall take an oath that they have read and understand these standards of ethics. So we really don't have a like organizational meeting, and I don't know if that's just once every term, is that once every year? So that's the kind of details that probably need to be fleshed out. And then if it, like, this is something that can get drafted that we know the county, like has approved and their council has approved. And then if it wants to be amended in the future, you know, it can be. And Doug, I agree with you, because there's several township policies that are for employees, but they're really, the full-time officials we're not township employees. So I think by having you review those policies too, to see if there's a way to have it in one document is a great idea. That's a very good idea. Heather, did you have a question? Was it Heather?
I did. I was just gonna suggest, because when we've been for the last two elections have had like a little orientation for new trustees, but I see that it's like annually for everyone. But we could incorporate that in some way, like when people come either to your office or to my office to get sworn in, or if there's like a swearing in ceremony, we could always, like, I don't know, review it or have it for a handout or something before that happens.
All right.
And
Any
I didn't get a copy of the oath, so I don't know what that looks like. I'm sure we could write our own to know what that would be, but I did not have a copy of. I do have a copy of the resolution they used to, the resolution they used to when they adopted it that night, but I've not seen what that oath actually looks like.
I could like text you a picture of it, Debbie. I'm sure the county probably does the same one as us. I think it's a standard one, and I can't quote it by heart. I'm sure that actually Brenda probably could, but it basically says,
I
it
do solemnly
references-
swear
Yes.
or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States or the Constitution of this state according to the best of my ability, so help me God. But we have expanded that before. Judge Pope added more language into his oath too, so. And it's in November, not January, so there's a couple of fine tuning, but I think overall that this is a clean, proven way, of an ethics policy. That's why I like what Debbie had found. I really think it makes it easier and cleaner this way to do it from someone that's already adopted it. And then if we choose to amend it, like Doug suggested, and include other policies from HR, we can do that too.
Brenda?
Woohoo. And Gloria, see if we can put Zoom in as far as inability to connect. If we need to do that. I think this is going to end. I just don't know when, and it might start back up according to the current numbers, although I heard we're finally going down on number of cases in Washoe County. So that's a good sign. Lisa, do you have your hand up or?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
Doug,
raised it.
I'm so
Yeah, I was just thinking that, I think if you recall, last November, when this board was going to be sworn in, I could not because of COVID, that there was a suggestion made at that time that we would have these swearing in more or less reenacted this coming November, which would be November 20th, whatever it is. And so that might be a good time for this board then to formally acknowledge the policy, because it sounds like a long time away, just coming out of last year's winter, but this is already April. By the time we adopt it and get familiar with it, maybe you can use it as a starting point as to when this board would formally recognize and affirm to be bound by the ethics policy.
excellent idea. And I was just, I would like to say that Trustee Wilson, well, he was here. He might be having technical difficulties. When he comes back in, we'll have him state where he's located. But I also was just thinking out loud, what about the park commission, since they're elected as well? Would that be good to, I don't know, we could think about it.
I know.
Seems like it would be a good idea to at least approach them and tell them that we're doing it and we'd like to include them and get their input.
Because it's regarding elected officials, and
Mhm.
and that just came to me as I was sitting here. Trustee Jimmy Wilson Jr., will you just state that you're present and where you are Zooming from?
Jimmy Wilson, present, Ypsilanti Township.
Thank you. Jimmy, we're just concluding, but have you had the opportunity to read the ethics policy? It's going to come back to the board in May after HR and the township attorney have the opportunity to look at our current policies to see if we want to put them, you know, we're not duplicating, and there's just one document for the ethics policy.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any?
No, it
additions?
looks good.
Okay. All right. Woo-hoo.
Hold on, Supervisor Stumble, before you move on, I'd just like to make 2 points. I'd like to say that this was a proactive policy. It wasn't created in for the purpose of something that currently was a problem. So I'd like that for the record, that this is proactively. And then I want to thank, of course, former trustee Monica Ross William, the former boss or the former board that was looking at this, and also all the residents who have asked us to pursue a policy. So thank you for that. I know there have been a few people like Joanne McCullum comes to mind, but I don't think she's the only person who have urged us to look at this. So I just want to say thank you for those people for doing that on behalf of our board.
Thank you. All right, any other, before I move on to the agenda? We have the minutes. We're going to go into the regular review of the agenda then. We have the minutes of the March 16th work session regular meeting and statements and checks. Are there questions or comments on that? Under new business, our old business, we have resolution 2021-08, which is a creation of the camera special assessment district number 076. And the public hearing, if you may recall, was held February 16th of 2021. Heather, do you want to do a recap on that? Or does the board members have any questions?
I'd be happy to do a little recap. So this was kind of an unusual special assessment district that came about through like a court decision or litigation between the property owner, Stuart Beal, and the Village Grove Apartments, and frankly, a public nuisance that has been ongoing for many, many years. But so Attorney McLean and Mike Razik together did a wonderful job of executing them to agree to the special assessment district so that we could have a camera, you know, facing their property so that we're able to see the traffic in and out, hopefully to help with reduction in crime for the whole community and neighborhood. So it really truly is a benefit to the community. But through that, the property owner, Stuart Beal, will pay for the special assessment district of the camera only. Prior to this, we brought forth the light and the camera. The light you'll see later down on the agenda. But after Attorney Winters and Attorney McLean in partnership, like talked about it more and discussed, you know, just potential things that could come up in the future, we thought that it was the wisest thing to, just as the township pay for the light, again, it still provides a benefit to the community and doesn't open us up to any potential problems with the property owner in the future. So I think that's about it. But if you have questions about the cost breakdown or anything that I just said sounds confusing, please ask.
Attorney Winters, have you reviewed the resolution and
Yes, and as Clerk Rowe indicated, this is somewhat atypical because while the property owner did agree through a settlement agreement to be responsible for the operational costs of a security camera, there was not an existing light pole that for the security camera to be attached to. And so the township will go forward with it, getting that worked out with DTE to actually establish a street light across from Village Grove in the public right of way. They'll be our responsibility. We'll then, per the settlement agreement, as Heather indicated, we will attach the security camera to that pole that will be facing Village Grove, and they will be responsible for the O&M costs for both parcels associated with that camera. And again, as Clerk Rowe indicated, and many of the board members may also recollect, this public nuisance came about because there was a drug deal that went south over there, which resulted in several apartments having gunshots coming through their walls. And suffice it to say, the settlement agreement requires a number of things of the property owners to do besides just to have the camera installed. But it is one part of about 12 different requirements to make the Village Grove more accountable for how they're going to be screening tenants, et cetera. So again, nobody is of the mindset that a camera by itself is going to solve all of our problems. But again, there's another tool available to the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department in the event something does occur in that location that requires that the camera to be utilized to locate individuals that might be involved in criminal activity. So it is a little bit bifurcated. We're doing the street light, as Turco said, and the camera will be the responsibility of the property owner from an O&M standpoint. And at the same time, we're also working out a more contractual understanding with DTE so that we have the right to access their poles for the cameras and other different types of technology advancements that may be coming up. So we've had some very good meetings in the last 30, 40 days. And I think this is one of our better meetings as well. I mean, internal meetings where we've been able to get everybody on the same page and make sure that we're not missing anything. So appreciate all the time of the full-time, we appreciate the time of the full-time officials in talking these things through before we come to the board meeting.
Any other questions? Comments on resolution? I have one question is, what on the page 1 where it says the township board has solicited requests for proposals, we really did we do that?
Let's see, where you're on page 1 of the
On the
resolution.
first page in the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Solicited request for proposal for the.
You know, that's a really good question. I don't think that I was a trustee on the board when you guys started using the Conti cameras, but I think that at some point that was bid out with OCS, but do you recall that at all? Because that's the company we use. We use Conti, and I don't know the history behind it. I'm sure that it probably followed the bidding process. But I wasn't here for when we started utilizing those in the community.
Yeah, and this is, like I said, this poor Heather. I mean,
it's all right. I'm hanging
all
in.
of the difficult things have occurred since she started, and like this is for cameras, and it's a legal settlement, and like we just never really dealt with it before. But the numbers are right. The letters have been sent. We had the public hearing, so it is in proper form, as Attorney Winters said. All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then Mr. Winters, I'm sorry, I forgot the general legal update.
Well, I can do it after you go through your agenda. If you have time, I can wait until you get through your agenda.
Okay, you're good. The next item under new business is authorizing the division of platted lots in East Lawn subdivision. Information is in the packet. And this is I know the assessing department reviewed it. It's in proper form for consideration. And I'm not sure if there's any questions regarding this or. Clerk Rowe or Attorney Winters, do you have anything else to add to it?
I guess if you, I can just, it's, you know, it's a property owner that's interested in redividing the properties. I know that Brian from assessing, I was telling Stan and Brenda today that like every time I go in his office, I just learn something new because he's so precise and exact, and he's very educated and extremely knowledgeable about assessing and all that he does, as well as Linda Gosling, but yeah, I see Brian more. So anyways, we're always happy to receive anything in our office, of course, but especially if it comes from assessing. So,
I do know that Brian is on the Zoom call if anyone has any questions from him on this request. No? All right. I agree about Brian, as we discussed today. He's excellent, like all our employees. But something about Brian, when you ask him to do something, he's really on it. And I'm not sure if it was his military background or what, but he's amazing. The next item on the agenda is request to approve an amended contract with the Water Resource Commission for the vermin management services in an amount not to exceed $40,000. So we continue to have issues with vermin or rats, whatever the proper term is. And it's in partnership with the Water Resource Commission. They've, last year we contracted with the Water Resource Commission to help us do this because we don't provide this service. And it's we had neighborhoods that expanded other than the initial request from West Willow. It's they've identified up at Ecorse Road and go towards the Galt Village area and Sugarbrook. So this will continue to allow that process to proceed and expand further than what we originally had thought, with the maximum amount being $40,000 for this year. I know that Mr. Winters has reviewed the contract. And
Yes,
in proper,
Yeah.
form. Is that correct?
it's a proper form, yeah.
And do you have anything else to, pardon me?
No, I think we just asked for a copy of the bait contract, the vendor, so we know the locations where the bait is going to be placed in different parts of the area affected. I think I saw where Evan might have a map available even this evening to show where the big locations are going to go, but I think there was, I did talk to Chief Copeland on the day of the community cleanup. I'm not really sure if the turnout was as great as it was last year, but I do think they are going to try and maybe schedule some more dates for the community cleanup that kind of went hand in hand with the vermin management services contract. So, but I do want to get a copy of the vendor contract so we know that who the vendor is, because there was some kind of miscommunication the first time during the pilot 3-month pilot program. Otherwise, it's a proper form, and Evan's taking a strong leadership role and trying to make sure that we live up to this mission statement of trying to eradicate this public health problem.
Correct. Excellent. Any questions or comments? I think this is great. I couldn't say enough about Water Resource Commissioner Evan Pratt. He's really been helpful through this process, and it is a concern. And we have to do whatever we can to protect the public health and safety of our community. And this is something that needs to be addressed. I do know that ordinance is also working on making sure, you know, people are adhering to the ordinances and not providing food and shelter and water for these vermins, because that's what they look for. And we're going to do educational piece. We've mailed them out before. We're going to do it again in order to make sure that the community, the township, and the Water Resource Commission, we're all working towards the same goal, you know, for a safer community, you know, and the public health is at risk with them. So I'm proud to be part of it. I've never thought I'd ever be part of something like this, but I learned so much, and I'm always happy to do whatever it takes to help the community, and that's what this does. Yes.
The one thing Yep, one thing I'd like us to keep our mind on, and I don't know, just to be mindful of, I don't know what the long term, if this is even going to have an impact on us, but I know that as the federal government talks about the infrastructure bill, that one of the things that I had heard somebody talking about in the national news was the idea that they're looking at the impact of like highways that went through communities and the negative impact. And I'm thinking this could fall into that kind of a category where maybe some long-term planning could help, because what I've heard people talk about is the fact that the highways there and those walls, what happens is the vermin get kind of enclosed in neighborhoods where before they would be able to run more freely. So I think we want to keep an eye on that, because I do know that I-94 in particular is one of the highways that has gone through communities, caused harm. I know the city, for sure, it went through neighborhoods and it caused harm. So I think we just want to keep track of that and watch that particular part of the legislation if it gets passed, because we may want to be seeing what that might be able, how that might be able to help us with this type of a problem.
Right. Good point. Attorney Winters.
I guess when, in fact, I'm still not used to calling rats vermin, so I'm just going to call them rats. But on the agenda tonight, you'll see where our fire department has had a run, it seems like an unusual run of fires during the last 4 to 6 months. And two of the properties right now that are on the agenda this evening for public nuisance issues have also been identified by the ordinance department as being area, how they just right conditions for the rat population to increase exponentially. And so when you have burned out properties and they just not, and they lay there in that condition, that just creates more and more opportunities for the rat population to continue to increase. And so my only point is that even though you have a contract with Evan, it all goes together. As Supervisor Stumble says, you have to have the ordinance department, the building department, a neighborhood watch. There's so many different levers. They have to come in together. They have to be in sync together to make this public health problem eradicated, and especially those properties in which they've been burned out, boarded up, and vacant, tall grass, weeds, et cetera, in the summertime. And so it's a never-ending battle, and I think it's going to continue for a while until we, get a handle on this, because, I don't think any of us knew that they actually were using the stormwater system as a place to also to breed and to come out. So it's been a learning process for everybody, but at the same time, I know that Evans has done a great job in trying to help us identify those locations where the problems are the greatest.
Right. Absolutely, Doug. And what Evan referred to, the storm sewer system, is a highway for them. That's so, Debbie mentioned that, and that's how he refers to it sometimes, as a highway for them to move throughout the community, which is why the baits are in the storm system that's connected everywhere. I also believe what Debbie said is a lot of residents think that when you're doing construction work, that causes them to come up and be more active. That makes sense to me, and I do think it's true, but I also know that the attraction of food, and like Doug said, burned out buildings or abandoned buildings that are not sealed properly. But if you have dog, if you don't pick up after your dog, you have garbage, and you have areas that collect water, that's the three things that they look for. So it takes a whole village to really address this problem. And we will look at the infrastructure that was brought up earlier in a meeting we were in about the infrastructure dollars that might be coming out. So what a great board. Any other questions or comments on that? I don't see any hands raised. Thank you. The next item is to request to approve a facility usage agreement. This is with the Ypsilanti National Little League for a 3-year term. And other questions on this? I know that John Hines, who is deputy supervisor, will be on the regular meeting. If you have any questions about this, we do this every 3 years. And I know Stan has been involved before. Debbie Swanson has also been involved in the past. And the attorney has reviewed this, correct? Attorney Winters?
Yes, I did a very detailed letter of March 21st about the contract.
And it's in proper form for board
The
consideration.
proper form, yes, it is.
Are there questions on this? Okay,
Yeah, I had one, Supervisor.
okay, Debbie, is your hand? Okay,
Yeah, there was a part about the non-compete clause. I'm looking for it. I'm guessing the things in yellow maybe were new, but somewhere there was a part that said non-compete, the township will not compete. I thought the booth at opening day, that was a nice ad. Yeah, number 4 on page 3 at the very, very bottom of page 3. Says the township shall not offer competing leagues during the spring and the fall seasons. That's concerning to me. Just because usually our children play Little League or they play with the township programs. And so I'm just wondering why we would create a non-compete clause that harms us or our recreation department.
Hi, am I on the meeting now?
oh, John Hines, yeah, just a minute, I see that John has joined the meeting. John, did you hear the question from trustee Swanson?
I did, and I'd be happy to answer that if I could. So the
State your
reason
name for
why,
the record, Just,
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
if you could state your name for the record for the.
Sure, my name is John
record.
Hines, here in Ypsilanti Township. I'm the
Okay.
deputy supervisor. So this decision was made after some discussion with the Ypsi National Little League and the Residential Services Department and the Recreation Department. And the focus on that was Ypsi Nationals had a long-standing relationship with the rec department within the community. They do a good job of sourcing fundraising and they subsidize a lot of their costs. The last I saw in 2019 for their seasons, they were able to offer T-ball and youth baseball for next to zero for a lot of their members. And that's something that we just cannot do. So the hope with this agreement with the rewording of this section was to be able to still offer a summer league. So we can still offer youth baseball to our residents, our customers, and then they can do the spring and the fall, utilize the fields, help promote our department more fully. And so the kids that aren't doing baseball in those other seasons might do soccer or other youth basketball with us.
Debbie, does that answer? Or-
Does, but I'm still concerned. I mean, I guess if the department heads were all together, that's good to know. But like, I know that we've also got overlapping territories. So in the township, you have residents that fall in the American League instead of the National League. And so I'm just wondering, like, the whole total impact on everybody because they're interconnected. Usually they kind of did have simultaneous, or at least when my daughter was playing, they had programs that were running in the township. They had programs that were running with Little League. So I'm just making sure that nobody gets left out. And then people usually, at least in this time frame, now again, this is, 15 years ago, people had pretty distinct feelings about where they wanted to play. You had strong people wanting to play Little League, and you also had an equally strong group of people that liked the rec department and wanted to play at the rec department. So I'm just trying to understand what we could be limiting. If the recreation department feels like this is a good thing, then I can lean towards that because that's a business that they do. I just want to make sure that we're aware of unintentional consequences. And for sure, your American League, you do have township residents that are that reside in the American Little League versus the National Little League. It would be the western part of the township. The American doesn't offer, or did not offer softball at one point. So all softball was played in Ypsi National. But baseball, boys baseball would be, and even the T-ball, you'd have some people that are American. I guess how would we work that out if we didn't have an offering because of a relationship with Ypsi National, that we don't have a relationship or an equal relationship with American just for the purpose of the play?
Heather, I see that you have your hands raised.
Yeah, I think Trustee Swanson, that's a really interesting question and point that you bring up. And I didn't know, John, if you had with you today, and it's fine if you don't, but just our numbers for softball or T-ball during those 2 seasons. That just might be an interesting piece of information to have.
John, are you?
I'm sorry, our internet was a little tricky there. I did not hear what Heather said. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just wondering if you knew the numbers of how many people participate in our softball and T-ball programs in the spring and fall.
Yeah, so the numbers were a big reasoning for that is looking at what we had in 2019 and 2018. I don't have much further back than that, but looking at that, each year we were about 40 people per division. And that's a part of why this decision came about as well, is because our numbers are on that border of not having a full league. So by not competing with them and focusing solely on the summer, which they don't offer in a normal season, we could hopefully potentially get more and continue to have our strong program.
Oh, okay. Debbie, did that help explain? Does that
And
make
I guess to your question about Ypsi American, Debbie, I've had a relationship with them in the past, and I've not reached out since we've come back from the COVID closure, because I know their relationship with Ypsi National is somewhat, tumultuous at times. But by at least having this summer that doesn't get undercut by the spring and fall, I was hoping to still be able to have a program for all of our residents across the whole township.
Is there a way to have that reviewed earlier than 3 years, just that particular clause, so that we know what unintentional consequences that there could be? Maybe it gets kept, but if there's anything that we found in that particular clause, we're not locked in for 3 years, because 3 years for an athlete, like, you're talking about a whole section of their time. So it may work out just fine. And I may be advocating for something. That's my only area of concern after. And again, I have nothing but good things to say about recreation sports and about Ypsilanti National. It was the perfect experience for when I was going through. It's a great community. Like, I've advocated for this partnership the entire time I was on the park commission. I'm just worried when I see a non-compete, because that's the first time I've ever seen that in the league documents. And so that's my only concern. And locking it in for 3 years, I mean, that is a long time when we're talking about youth athletics.
It is, and that's another reason why the contract was actually cut from 5 to 3, because I believe the contract before was 2010 to 2015. Because if you look at signing the contract now for 2021, with us not offering a spring and a fall league anyways, it's only 2 more years. So that was the reason why we cut that down. We can look at offering that kind of amendment if the need is there. Just when we were looking at numbers with the field rentals we've got right now, the demand for that, it seemed like a good way to condense to offer the most complete program, the most complete field space for renters, to just keep everything healthy. Because like I said, looking at 2018 and 2019 with our leagues as well, having the ages spread out so far per groupings, a lot of this is just based on just kind of reining everything in to kind of prune the branches so it grows more fully.
Makes sense. And the last comment before I let it go is I would warn to be really careful about the idea of territory. Like, all these sports have their ideas of territory. So the idea that if the township is gonna let go of that or lean towards YNLL, YNL has to understand the responsibility, the great responsibility they have to create a welcoming, encouraging environment for athletes that maybe weren't with them in the first place. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't or they won't, but I'm just thinking parents get used to where they play. And there are groups of children that are used to playing with each other. If we're going to take a piece of that away with the hopes that it's going to be provided by YNLL, why it has to be welcoming. It can't just be about those dollars shifting there. The children and the families have to feel welcome, because there were pretty definitive territories and differences when my daughter was playing. And I just want to make sure that it's a space where everybody feels welcome and included.
That's understood.
And from my perspective, so I can understand it, we added this section because the non-disclosure, or what do you call it, non-compete clause, we added that because we didn't have enough league at that time. Is that why? The township shall not offer competing leagues. So what would compete with this?
It would only compete in the time frame. So we're just focusing on summer, June and July instead of spring and then the fall. And this is also to share focus on our soccer league and then our fall basketball league that we're trying to push.
Okay. Okay. So I do see in the contract, it has that Ypsilanti National Little League can notify us if they don't want to renew the lease in the beginning of the year. I mean,
One goal with that as well was so they push our program and our department more than they had in the past,
oh, okay.
which was in their, internet mailers and their at the field, letting us come to opening day with the booth. So really try to strengthen our relationship with their program participants as well.
Okay.
And I thought with the Serafinsky scholarship that we started, how they subsidize their cost, that would be a great base that could take advantage of that as well and use our programs that they've not been able to in the past.
So if they shorten the agreement, that really wouldn't be a big deal, but you went from 5 to 3. So I heard what you said there too, and we're already into 1. So it's really like a 2-year agreement. Is that?
Yes.
So Doug, based on some of the comments made, do you think we need to amend anything or just try it for 2 years? And
Well, I would suggest that maybe where it talks about not offering competing leagues, that maybe we require, or at least request the YNNL to maybe, or even the recreation department to do a look back on the previous year, just see exactly, I think that's what Trustee Swanson may have been kind of stating, is that maybe we should do a look back just to make sure that the program went forward in the way that's been explained by John Hines this evening, and that I think it'd be a good idea anyways to do an annual report and just make sure that everybody at the end of the fall season, whenever the season's over, again, do a look back provision that says you provide a written report as to the successes, the things that might have been, were there any unintended consequences? I think that would give everybody a feeling of, just a better feeling of understanding that nobody was excluded, for example, but at the same time, you were able to meet your offerings of recreation the way that John described them. So maybe there should be a look back clause or report that's provided at the end of the first season.
that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, and communication is everything. So maybe a statement, a joint statement about why we're making this decision. so that there's a common message that the community gets about what we're trying to do here. Because I heard cooperation, collaboration, like it sounds very positive, but that we want to be real clear about how that message. And is there a price difference, John, in play? Traditionally, the township program was a little lower in cost.
What I saw, and after talking to the sermons and when I sat down with them, is they might have a listed price, but through their partnerships, they subsidized a lot. They are very prideful of the amount of scholarships they're able to hand out. So that's my main reasoning when I approached the department, if this would be an idea to explore, was due to that fact specifically. Because if you could play with us for 65 for 6 weeks, or them, and they're gonna cover half to all the cost, most people would choose them. So when you look at the trend from 2017 to 2018 to 2019, how the numbers went from 65 to 55 to 45, it just was very disturbing on where we were going to be at this point, especially coming out of COVID, where our numbers are lower than they
Mhm.
traditionally would be otherwise.
Okay.
And I would be happy to either after the season or sooner than that, put together a report on how the seasons were in the past few years compared to how they compare to this year when signups are concluded.
Okay. And I'm part of the reason for my concern is that I know in the area that for a lot of families that cannot afford to play travel ball, the Little League and the township programs provide an opportunity for them to learn to play sports where they can be competitive at the high school level. So I just want to make sure that we don't do anything that breaks that opportunity so that children aren't showing up in high school without that experience because they weren't able to go off and play travel ball. This is the beginning experience for many families that can't afford that travel experience. So I want to make sure we don't have any unintended consequences.
Of course. And again, the season in the summer is a full season, 6 weeks for T-ball, coach pitch, and youth baseball. And we have a youth baseball camp beforehand, and we have some summer opportunities with Skyhawks with their trained coaches. So we are trying to add more as well as what we've already had. It's just for the spring and the fall is the two things we were looking to avoid.
Treasurer Stan Eldridge, can you talk about, I know you have done this for many years and you were part of the negotiations in the beginning on this.
I've been doing this for about 35 years. This is a good agreement. Trustee Swanson brings up valid points that have been historically a problem. I played in these leagues as a kid. I played in the National Little League. I know what she's talking about. The third component is the Lincoln Little League as well, which encompasses some of the township residents on the south end. But having done this for so many years and all over the country, this is a good agreement. And if John's going to take a look along with those Little League representatives on a yearly basis to make sure that we're doing it right, historically throughout Michigan and in the Midwest, recreation programs are seeing dwindling numbers in the two time frames that John's mentioned. So this is a good agreement, but I think there's some valid points raised to look at it moving forward, but I would support it.
All right. I see that trustee Newman has joined us. Would you just state your name and where you're located in Ypsilanti and which community for the Zoom meeting?
Trustee John Newman, Ypsilanti Township.
Thank you. So are we okay with this proceeding as it is with the checks and balances in place and
I'm good with it, yeah.
okay. Thank you, John, for being on the Zoom and answering these kind of questions, because I know you met with them several times and it's gone very smoothly so far, but we don't want any unintended consequences like Debbie said. So excellent discussion.
Thank you, board.
The next item on the agenda is request to approve a purchase agreement with DTE. This is for the installation of the street light on Harris and Village Lane, which is for the camera, and the township will pay for this light and the operation of it. The annual lot charge is $170.88 per year. Any questions? Okay, that's pretty straightforward. The next agenda item is a request to approve a purchase agreement, request to authorize circuit court litigation to abate public nuisances at Woodlawn and DeSoto. Is Mike Radzik on? Mike's not here. Doug, can you?
Yes,
I'm just gonna screen share too, Brenda, so they can see the pictures that we're talking about, okay?
Yeah, I think that's great if you show what we're actually discussing on the screen. I love that.
I can do it for everything, but like a lot of the items just end up being text, so, I mean, I'm happy to do it for everything, or what's your preference?
For this for sure.
Okay.
Can everyone see?
Yep.
Mr. Winters, would you like to go over this? Or-
this is a house at Woodlawn that was a subject of a very severe structural fire. In fact, Fire Marshal Dan Kimball provided probably over 150 photographs of the interior. It's a total loss. Right now, this property does not have any insurance. We did reach out to Habitat to see if this was of any interest to them, and the short answer is no, it's not one that fits into their immediate plans. And so, and you can see in this picture, there's other ones I've sent over to the board that shows the rear yard and side yard and tremendous amount of blight that's already accumulated at this location. And again, the township we've exhausted all of our options here. I even reached out to Mishta because they had a mortgage on the property, which also required the homeowners to have insurance. And they told me in correspondence, which I shared with the board, that they don't enforce that provision. And so once they found out that the house that was pretty much destroyed by fire, they simply discharged their mortgage. And so that was their way of saying they don't want to be brought into a lawsuit, because that's where that was going with that question. But many times mortgage companies will buy insurance for properties that for some reason allow their home to lapse in coverage. But in this case here, we've done everything we possibly can. We reached out to Mishta, we reached out to Habitat, we reached out to other nonprofits to see what can be done. And we've run into a brick wall, so to speak. And as you can see from the density of the neighboring properties, it's not fair to them to have this property remain in this condition as you go through the spring and summer time. And again, the issue about rodent infestation, et cetera. So that being said, sometimes the litigation will result in someone's coming forward and being able to purchase the property or to just do something with this beyond demolition. But at this point in time, Mike has requested that we go to court to have an abatement order and see where we go from there in terms of demolition.
Questions or comments? This is so sad for both the neighborhood, but for the person the family that lived there as well. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. The next one is DeSoto.
Yeah, this is another house fire. And again, not to be redundant, but we're seeing more and more of these type of structural fires. This one also, you're just seeing 2 out of 150 photographs that were taken by Fire Marshal Dan Kimball. It's also been inspected by Bill Elling. This is a kind of a flip side of the previous one in that we were told at least that this house was insured by Liberty Mutual, and that there was some kind of issue of coverage in which they were maybe we're not going to provide coverage. You may recall from previous letters, I actually reached out to the insurance agent for Liberty Mutual and requested that they contact me to advise me, one, are they going to provide coverage? Two, if they are, who should I be talking to? And three, if they don't have coverage on this, then to say so. And no response has been received, which may result in, again, Liberty Mutual being involved in this, or not, I shouldn't say Liberty Mutual, but whoever the insurance carrier is. We were told it was Liberty Mutual. But again, given the location, the density of the housing in West Willow, what's going on inside, outside, it becomes a real attractive nuisance when you have vacant properties. And again, this house cannot remain in that condition. And again, we've exhausted all of our resources to try and find a resolution short of litigation. Mike, I'm sure would say it late if he was here right now, that we really, it's not our first option it's not what we first want to do, but when you reach a point where there's no other way out and the impact is starting to spill over into the neighboring properties, nobody wants to live next to a house that's burned out and boarded up, and it's kind of like the broken window theory. But again, this one here's another example of how you have to be more proactive if you're going to achieve the neighborhood stabilization, which this board, other boards have always made a priority. So these are just two examples of house fires that are spilling over into our lane. When I say our lane, the board's lane is a problem that we now have to deal with.
Questions or comments? Thanks.
How much does it cost to demolish a building versus saving it? Well, I guess I just answered my own question, but how much does it cost to demolish a building?
Most of the bids we've seen over the years for houses like this could probably go anywhere between $8,000 to $12,000.
Okay.
That's why we don't like to demolish buildings, because we end up having an empty lot there sometimes. It's not going to be rebuilt.
Right.
But at the same time, we do get complaints and telephone calls on a weekly basis from people wanting to know what's going on with this property. And so you're kind of put in a position where at some point in time, when you're not getting any traction anywhere else, you have to, file the appropriate lawsuit to bring in all interested parties and see if we can get a resolution. Sometimes it works out where we bring in people and they all agree to figure out a way to rehab the house, and which is what I would want to see happen. But there's been so much damage to these properties interior. Yeah, I can see in the past we've seen some of these properties require in excess of $90,000 to $100,000 or more to simply rehab, because you have to gut the entire house. When you have this kind of damage and structural damage and fire damage and smoke damage, it almost requires the house to be gutted.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I just wondered if that is authorized, does the property owner still then maintain the property, or what happens? Like, who owns the property at that point if the order is granted?
Well, the property would still be in the title, in the name of the property owner. The one on Woodlawn, it appears like it's going down a path of delinquent property taxes as we speak, and but the title remains with the owners. The township, in many cases, will put a a judicial lien on the property. So if it ever is sold, the township will be reimbursed our costs. And over the years, Giovanna can tell you, she's on the call, on the Zoom call tonight, that surprisingly, sometimes a year, 2 or 3 years down the road, we'll bring over a check to the township that results in the township being made whole from these cases. That's not what we start out trying to do, but we try to protect the township and making sure that if there is a cost incurred, that we protect the township by putting a judicial lien on the property.
Other questions or comments? Doug, did I hear you say that this is the third year of not paying the taxes on it?
I think that according to the title records, it's going on past 3 years, yes.
Okay. Yeah, this happened the fire happened in March, so Doug, you're correct. The residents, are upset that live in that area. So we have to do something, and I just feel really bad for the owner, but at the same time, it's a public nuisance, so I support moving forward with it. Just sad all the way around.
Would the insurance company make that determination that it's better to demolish than rehab, or how would that determination be made?
They had no insurance.
Oh, okay.
That's, yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah, Woodlawn has no insurance, and there's a lack of clarity in regards to DeSoto. And if they do have insurance, we're going to find out, because they'll probably end up being brought in as a necessary party, because at one time they did have a representative saying they were insured, but we're just not actually clear about the insurance for DeSoto, but Woodlawn definitely. And like I said, Mishta, which I think is very, very bad public policy. If they put a mortgage on a property and require that homeowner, like all of you are required, to maintain insurance, and the failure of which allows them to purchase insurance for you to protect their collateral. And when they don't do that, and then they say, well, we'll just discharge our mortgage and walk away. Well, it's not good public policy, because now you've left the township holding the bag, so to speak, because you could have purchased insurance at a very, very cheap cost that would have protected your investment and protected the community. And again, I was surprised with how quickly I got a response from Mishta, because normally when you write those letters, they don't respond very quickly. On this one, they responded on the same day, practically, saying, "Okay, oh yeah, we don't enforce this, and by the way, we're going to discharge the mortgage." So, that was very disappointing. I mentioned in my letter that maybe one that we talked with State Representative Peterson about, because if you're going to start, that's probably not the only house in this township in which Mishta has an underlying mortgage on, and so you have to have these properties insured. And if you as a homeowner fail to do so, then I can guarantee you your mortgage company gets notified, and they're going to purchase insurance to protect their collateral. And so the private sector will do that. I don't know why Mishta feels like they should not do that as well, because it protects their collateral, taxpayer dollars, etc. But that was what was frustrating with me, because as soon as I alerted them that from the title work that it was their collateral, their response was, we should have we should have insured this, or we should have taken steps to have it insured. Their response was, thank you for letting us know, we'll discharge our mortgage. And that doesn't help anybody.
That's awful.
I thought so. That's why I was kind of a little bit soapbox in the letters because again, it's bad public policy all the way around. A lot of people sometimes will inadvertently have their insurance lapse and they'll get notified by the mortgage company. If you don't have your insurance in effect by this date, we'll purchase it for you because we're not going to have a fire occur out there and have our collateral destroyed. And so, but they just flat out said they don't. Yeah, you're right, Doug. It's in the mortgage, but we don't enforce that. Okay. I mean, it's not fine, but it's not the way it should work. And I know that's not the only property in the township that has a mortgage backed by Mission.
And MISHA is supposed to help people get in their home and stay in their home. That's the whole purpose of the MISHA program. I'm not sure which program it might be under, but there's a lot of programs where MISHA is really trying to help people get into an affordable housing arrangement. But like you said, that's a shame that they didn't treat it like other private mortgage holders.
It's just bad public. It's just bad public policy. It's just bad policy all the way around. It's good that they can step in, help pay delinquent property taxes, and allow homeowner to catch up and stay in their home. That's all very noble, and it's very, very one that should be recognized as such. But it doesn't do anyone any good to have the property taxes brought current and not monitor that you have the property insured. I just flabbergasted at their response because again, all of us from time to time might miss a bill and might need a reminder like, hey, you're overdue on this account, which is fine. But for them to sit there and let your collateral go unprotected like this, it's just bad public policy.
All right, agreed. If the board would like, I could send some emails out to the state officials and just ask them to look into it as well. Just to protect everybody, the community, the purchaser of the home. And not paying taxes, another thing, I'm surprised. Number 6 is a request to approve updated job description for residential services director and a wage increase of $5,000 annually for Mike Hoffmeister. I know that Karen Wallen is on the call as well. And do board members have any questions in regard to this? When we hired Mike Hoffmeister, he had a job description that did not include the recreation services manager and the golf course director. And however, he had been actually overseeing it. And he's done a great job for the township and has worked hand in hand with the safety committee on with the COVID-19, the building, and he's a very important part of the township. He's the township face. He interfaces with a lot of. There's nothing he doesn't touch between him and Mike Radzick and Doug, and so we're recommending this as a consideration by the township board. Are there any questions or comments?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes. Yes, Trustee Wilson.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I'm clear that the main reason is because of the added responsibilities, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
I didn't want other salaried employees to think that they're not great workers as well as all the great comments that we have about Mike Hoffmeister. But the added responsibilities is the need for the increase.
Yeah, it caused to review.
Yes.
And I would never not think great of all the other employees. So I apologize if that's how it came off. This is what drove the memorandum, was the additional responsibilities. Heather?
Thank you. I would just like to echo what Trustee Wilson and yourself, Madam Supervisor, said, that this in no way means that like all of our people here are wonderful. Like we talked about Brian McCleary earlier, just we're so thankful to have such an amazing staff at the township across the board. So thank you to everyone. But I did just want to share a few like quotes that I've heard or comments that I've heard about Mike Hoffmeister in the last couple days. And I'll just share three of them. But one is that he's a super supervisor, which I thought was cute. But the person that said this was just so genuine when they said it. Someone else said he always follows up, and he's really great at follow through, which I think all of us here on the board know, as well as the other managers know, that he can be relied upon as a good team player. And then he's so quick to respond to issues and is always knowledgeable of the subjects that you're talking to him about. And that is true for all of the added responsibilities that he's had. Like he's just picked up the COVID thing and ran with it, and working without a operations superintendent and just made it work. So he's been really great, and I'm grateful that he's been able to just pick up those other added responsibilities. And thank you and Karen Wallen, the human resources manager, for bringing this forward.
Thanks, Heather. Others comments?
My main concern would be, and I echo Trustee Wilson and Trustee Heather Rowe, that this doesn't trickle to all of the other employees who are very valuable as well. And it kind of concerns me getting a salary increase while we're in a pandemic, but given the added responsibilities, it seems as though the salary increase is justified. But I do worry about, what it looks like when we as a township are trying to be fiscally responsible.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Newman. And we have adjusted other positions in the past. When Michael Sarin stepped up as safety director and we added responsibilities for that, we have made adjustments for that. And Karen Wallen and our HR she has a lot of added responsibilities. And so did Giovanna Neal, our accountant, who started doing grant administration for us, as far as all the accounting and following up, making sure all the documentation and that. So we have adjusted other ones in the recent past, but I completely understand what the other trustees and board members have said. Everyone's great. I just wish we would have had it in the job description. I thought it was, but it's not. But even if it wasn't, I would probably look at trying to we need to do like a yearly review of everyone. A lot of times what we have done in the past is that we always gave increases based on the negotiated with the unions. So whatever the unions received, then they passed it on to, the non-union and the board as well. So I do think from time to time we should look at, the market and additional responsibilities and see if it should be adjusted separate from, what the union folks also receive. But we haven't done that before, but I do think maybe there's a possibility to start doing things like that now. The pandemic has made it very hard. You're right, John, but it's also made people work very, very hard too. There was a small group of people that actually worked during the pandemic every day at the township hall. Yeah, and so I personally find that it's harder during a pandemic and requires more time than it did prior, in the positions. It seems odd that that's the case, but it is, because it requires much more communication, like Debbie had talked about before. And sometimes you forget, oh, darn it, I forgot to tell so-and-so about something that occurred, and it's because they weren't literally in the building like we always have been. having team meetings and having board meetings and all the things, but I appreciate all the comments and input from the board. Moving on then, we have number 7, the request to approve the 2021 agreement with the Washtenaw County Road Commission for the local road improvements. In the packet, there's a memo kind of explaining, what we've done and how we go about this. Every year, the Washtenaw County Road Commission presents a list of roads and recommended roads to be improved. We thought they were done on the PACER study, but after we received a little more information, that's not accurate. The PACER study determines the level of the pavement. And the list that they provided us had $1.4 million in it. And there's no way we can do that. We did $660,000 that we've paid for 10 years for road improvements on a bond. And this is for a total amount of road improvements of about $480,000. So it's close to $1 million that we do every year in investing in our roads. So the 3 full-time officials met, we just thought that it made sense to do it concentrated in one area. And Ford Lake Village had asked us previously last year and brought some of these streets to light that is in Ford Lake Village. And it actually was on the list for the road commission as well. So that's how we came up with the list. We were talking, the 3 full-time officials met today and talked about maybe having some sort of committee that can look at what the road commission proposes and would actually plan out every year what we should do as far as improvements. Until that committee is appointed, we would like the board to consider the recommendations that have been presented. Are there any questions on this? Did I explain it well enough?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Mr. Newman?
How long would these specific repairs last before they would need to be redone again?
I don't know. I know that we've started doing something that's supposed to make them last longer, and where they put, and they don't really like crack sealing. A lot of residents don't like it. But once you do it, it's like a driveway. I think in 2 to 3 years, you come back and do the seal over it. And that's supposed to make the road last longer than what it had normally lasted in the past. So we have over 300 miles of roads, and there's like $14 million of road improvements that are identified that could be done. So, and based on the road commission, Joanne McCullum is on their board, and the road commission continually says that Ypsilanti Township is a leader in investments. So I don't know. We did March Road and we did it one year and it fell apart the next year. So it probably depends on the testing of the pavement, and then there's no real warranty on it. We asked for warranty in the past, and they said it's very, very expensive to do that.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
I apologize. I think 10 years, is that what the road commission said? Heather and Stan, was it 10 years?
Yeah, if for John, I met with one of the road commissioners a week and a half ago.
Okay.
And so generally when they come in and chip seal a road or repave a road and then chip seal, they expect to get somewhere between 7 and 10 years out of it, depending on the volume of traffic that goes over it.
Okay.
This particular subdivision, I think, has been there for 20 plus years. And I think this will be the first treatments they've had, maybe 20. It's in that general ballpark.
Okay.
But this will be the first work that a lot of these roads have had, so.
All right. Yeah, as long as it's not like every 3 to 5 years, then, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Well, there's no other way to really,
Right, no,
okay.
yeah,
We
I
have-
understand,
If we don't improve them, the
right,
road commission used to do a lot more work in the township, and
yeah,
I mean, like lots of other county departments they don't provide the same amount of services that they used to in the past. And there's a lot more townships that are growing that has more roads, and this is what's called a secondary road. So it's a neighborhood. And they actually, and Doug, correct me if I'm not using the right terminology, they took a position that all the roads in the future will be private. So when they're developed, the road commission and the township will not be responsible for it. It's going to be the people within that development.
thank you.
Yes, sure. I talk too much sometimes, I'm sorry. The next item on the agenda are the budget amendments. There's PTO payouts, the 241,000 for the proposed road improvements, and the 40,000 for the collaboration with the Washington County Water Resources on vermin control. The street light that is also on the agenda, a payout again for PTO. Are there questions regarding the budget amendments? Excellent. Authorization and bids, we have the request to award the low bid for the annual playground mulch installation to Superior Ground Cover in the amount of $12,402.50. Questions? No? All right. Is there any other business? None that I'm aware of. Board members updates? Are there any board member updates? All right, we can adjourn, or Mr. Winters, do you want to go back to the attorney's report or wait till the board meeting?
Well, I can do it either way, whatever your pleasure.
You can go ahead and do it now and then.
Well, the first update that I would give the board this evening is, and I'm trying to use my words very carefully here, and I think I'll be clear once I get into it a little bit better. There has been a committee that has been studying the need for enhanced security here at the Township Civic Center in the 14B District Court. Stan, and I know Mike Hoffmeister, Mike Radzik, Mark Nelson, Judge Washington, myself, and other people have been involved in this. I mean, might be even somebody out. But we've also been working with the county facilities individual who's got some deep experience in how to actually protect the townships, protect the civic center such as ours or in the court, and have a single point access entrance. And needless to say, all of us have seen the news of the last number of years with the increased vitriol attacks upon public officials, and we've even watched probably one of the most prestigious universities in the world having a regent say that the 3 female elected officials in this state, the highest elected officials, the Governor Whitmer, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, Attorney General Dana Nessel, are witches, should be burned at the stake. And you've heard that kind of rhetoric, and you've seen the reaction to that rhetoric from the Board of Regents and from the university. And so you may ask yourself, what does that have to do with the court security or the civic center security? Well, for the 3rd time now in a very short period of time, and I discussed this with Supervisor Stumbo before this evening, is that she received just one of the most hate-spewed threats, over the weekend that we heard yesterday. It's been investigated now by the Washington County Sheriff's Department, but it really hits home just as to the need for improvements to the security in this building, or in the building once we return to it. We have, a lot of people that, right now the building is very accessible to people who wish to come in and possibly do harm to our staff and our employees and our elected officials. And so when you juxtapose the need for security and you kind of mix that in within an environment where you have a University of Michigan regent referring to elected leadership of women in the state as being witches and burned at the stake, it's not all that surprising when I hear the recordings that I heard today from this person with these vile threats directed at Supervisor Stumbo. And it's just, again, reaffirms and recommits the need for us to really follow through on what we've identified as being a high priority. I think all of you still remember that photograph I sent over showing how you had the armed militia standing at the state capitol, standing shoulder to shoulder with their assault weapons. And we've also seen how you had plots to kidnap the governor and execute her. And the attacks of public officials, especially women, I think is continuing to increase, at least in this state. And I be the first to say I never would have believed in my lifetime that we would have heard some of the things that have come out of people that you thought were in positions of authority and were to lead by example. So at this point in time, I think the best course of action for us is to, number one, condemn that kind of rhetoric and to respond to it appropriately by turning it over to law enforcement and to have everybody to be held accountable for what they say, because as we've seen on January 6th, words matter, and you can see people's reactions when they are incited to carry out, mob violence. And so today was another eye opener in terms of just knowing that we're on the right track. We've already have an RFP that's being vetted by all of us on that committee. I think that the first step will be for us to retain the services of a qualified architect that can take us to where we need to be. And that is to have a secure building for our employees, for our staff, for elected officials, and for all those who have business to do in the township, and for those who have business to conduct in the 14B District Court. So I do think that we have a lot of priorities in this year, and all of us can't really wait to get back to having meetings where we can sit down and have these discussions face to face. But in the meantime, we have to keep on moving forward. I don't think there's any question the time is of the essence. I grew up with three sisters, so I know exactly, and at times I've seen firsthand how women elected to Ypsilanti Township are treated differently by many people in the community because of their sex, and I decided it's not right. And again, I feel very circumspect in choosing the words this evening beyond just saying right now that that is a high priority, and that will be coming back, and that I hope the board, I know the board, will agree that this is a high priority. And we have too many areas in this township that are very vulnerable, and no matter how secure we try and make it, can it be penetrated? Of course, you can't protect everything. I know that. We've seen that happen in different mass shootings across the country, but we can do better to protect, now that we know that we have the right to do a single point entry. It's going to require a lot of commitment. Maybe the stimulus funds will be a good place to consider. I don't know where the funding will come from, but that's just a serious issue that we have discussed over the years, and all of us now, I believe, are in a position to see that come to fruition. And so, again, that is one that is very, very serious, and it's one that we cannot let our guard down. So I don't know if you have any, I have another issue to talk about, but I don't know, Brenda may have something to say, or somebody else may have something to say beyond the core security issue, but it just came to light a few days ago, and in the context of what we've been hearing on the TV from Regent Weiser, it just really galvanizes all of us to really make sure that we double down on our efforts to bring good security to this building and to the 14B District Court.
Thank you, Doug. I didn't know we're gonna mention that, but I do want board members to know that like this did happen before. And it was actually an employee that used words to the fact that, they didn't use witches, they used the other word, and they're gonna sit on a pile of compost and shoot us. And there was 3 women at that time that were, on the board, and the 3 full-time officials were women. So we had to deal with that then. But we knew that person. Now this time I don't know this person. So that makes it a little touchy, but based on the advice of the team, they've made a few suggestions, follow police report, and we did that, and make sure that no trespass from here, and some other things they've suggested that we do while we investigate, or not we, they investigate what to do. So, to compare that to what happened, 28 years ago, I think, to now, it's a little bit different, because I agree with Doug, the climate is different. And I think a lot of times people are saying things, but they really don't mean it, then they shouldn't say it, especially things, like I'll hunt you down. That's not something that you take lightly. Regardless of your gender, no one should take that lightly. So they're investigating it, and I appreciate it. And we were in the process during COVID of last year of doing the actual security upgrades. They've been identified by the state Supreme Court, and people are working towards it, but COVID did hit. And I do the stimulus money, if we get it, I was taught that a bird in the hand's worth 2 in the bush, and we don't have it. People said that we're going to get it. I've seen it on a list of communities that are going to get it, but we have not received it. And I do not know the restrictions. Some of the restrictions, my understanding is, it has to be some of the projects that we didn't get to complete during COVID, which the security of the Civic Center and 14B Court, we were actually in process of doing that. So if there's restrictions on it to that, then I think it does fit into that, Doug. You're absolutely correct. So that was it. Doug, do you have something else?
I think the second update is to, I mentioned earlier tonight that we've had a number of meetings the last 30, 40 days. And in spite of the fact that we still have the COVID restrictions, we've had the benefit of having some great internal meetings following all the protocols of safety, the wearing the mask, the distancing. And the township's planning team consultant and the outside planning consultant has met with the township's full-time officials and myself to really get some traction on how we're going to address the resolution that we passed in regards to ensuring that we have ordinances and land use policies in place to actually have recommendations and public hearings regarding recreational marijuana. The planning people are working very diligently, and every 2 weeks we're having these internal meetings. The last meeting, I believe we're in a position that we can say that we intend to have public hearings and public meetings sometime actually early summer. with the goal being to actually have a policy that's gone before this township board and the planning commission that could be considered. And looking at the calendar with Clerk Rowe, we were somewhat optimistic that we might even be able to hit the second meeting in August and maybe the second meeting in September. And so we can bring to the public and to all of you, the board members, recommendations that would come from the planning and consultants, et cetera. So it's just that I wanted to make sure that in our resolution that extended the sunset provision to March 31st, we have these quarterly reports, but we have no problem giving monthly reports. At the same time, I think we can beat that March 31st deadline. I think we can and will. But I just want to make sure that we've had some great meetings and some great conversations, and it's now one that we need to put more contacts together and then take it to the public, take it to the planning commission, take it to this board. Nothing's going to be perfect coming out first time around, but we're in a position to make it happen and make it a reality so that we fulfill that mission statement that we said we're going to do. So again, many thanks to the full-time officials for the great meetings we've had internally and the planning staff and the actual outside planning consultant, Ben Carline. And we'll keep you informed as best we can, or I will, I know they will too, as to where we stand from a timeline standpoint. But the goal is to actually have everything in place long before the March 31st deadline. So that's that update.
All your work on that update. Is there questions and comments? I do know Trustee Wilson was really wanting something to happen sooner than 1 year. And so they had been working on it previously, but due to COVID, it was a lot of limitations. But since then, the planning, department has really made it one of the top priorities as well. So I thank you, Doug, for giving that update. It lets the board know that we heard what you said and we heard what the community said. So it's moving forward. All right, we're gonna, it's six.
Supervisor Stumble, I just want to say, I'm sorry that happened to you. An environment that creates a sense where someone doesn't feel safe is really unacceptable for a work environment. And if someone has caused that kind of harm to you, it doesn't just stop with one person. That's the point of trauma. It spreads out. So if you're not feeling safe, there are other people who work in the environment. So I appreciate the work that the safety committee is doing on this. And I just want to say I am sorry that happened to you, because it doesn't feel good to have that happen to you.
Thank you very much. Keep everyone updated on that progression as well. So at this time then it's 6:48. If it's all right, we'll take a break and we'll start promptly at 7. Thank you for the great discussion, you guys. I appreciate it. All right, so let's get started. At this time, as public comments, if there are public comments, if people would raise their hand, we'll be happy to call on them. Seeing none, we will go on to the consent agenda with the minutes of the March 16th work session and the regular meeting, as well as statements and checks for April 6, 2021.
So move.
Motion, Gerald Rowe,
Support Eldridge.
support Eldridge to approve the consent agenda. Are there any comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Attorney's report. Mr. Winters, I know you gave a good legal update in the work session. Do you have anything else you would like to add?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Old business, we have the resolution 2021-08, which is the creation of a camera special assessment district number 076 for Village Grove Apartments. The public hearing held at the February 16th, 2021 regular meeting Clerk Gerald, would you read the resolution?
Yep, I have Charter Township of Ypsilanti, Resolution 2021-08, creation of Neighborhood Camera Special Assessment District number 076, Village Grove Apartments. Whereas the Township Board of the Charter Township of Ypsilanti proposes to install one security camera to be located at Village Grove Apartments, and whereas Ypsilanti Township has paid for the purchase and installation of the security camera, and whereas the Township Board proposes the creation of a special assessment district consisting of 2 parcels known as Village Grove Apartments, which will be benefited to defray the operation and maintenance costs of the security cameras, and whereas the Township Board has solicited requests for proposals for the proposed projects describing the security camera improvements, the proposed location of said improvements, and estimated costs. And whereas the Conti Corporation, a video security company licensed by the state of Michigan, prepared and submitted proposed plans to install, operate, and maintain security cameras in public areas located within the boundaries of Village Grove Apartments, which consist of 2 parcels within the following estimated costs. Cost for purchase and installation of 1 security camera paid for by Ypsilanti Township, $7,255. Total annual residence cost for maintenance and operation of security cameras for the first 3 years, $7,260.72. The annual cost per parcel is $1,210.12, and the monthly cost per parcel is $100.84. Whereas the plan estimates of cost and proposed special assessment district were filed with the township clerk for public examination and notice of the public hearing upon the same was published and mailed in accordance with the law and statute provided by as shown by affidavits pertaining hereto on file with the township clerk, and whereas in accordance with the aforesaid notice, a hearing was held on the 16th of February 2021, commencing at approximately 7 p.m., and all persons given the opportunity to be heard in the matter. And whereas a result of the foregoing, the Township Board believes the project to be in the best interest of the township and of the district proposed to be established therefore. Now therefore it hereby be resolved as follows. 1, that this Township Board does hereby approve the plans for the public security cameras as prepared and presented by the Township's licensed security system contractor and its annual estimated cost for the operation and maintenance thereof. 2, that this Township Board creates a special assessment district located within the boundaries of Village Grove Apartments, with the district to be known as Village Grove Apartments Neighborhood Camera Special Assessment District number 076, within which the costs of the operation and maintenance of the security cameras shall be assessed according to benefit. 3, that on the basis of the foregoing, this Township Board does hereby direct the supervisor and assessing officer to make a special assessment roll in which shall be entered and described all the parcels of the land to be assessed within the names of the respective owners thereof, if known, and a total amount to be assessed against each parcel of land, which the amount shall be the relative portion of the whole sum to be levied against the parcels of the land in the special assessment district to benefit the parcel of the land bearers to the total benefit to all the parcels of the land in the special assessment district. When the same has been completed, the supervisor or assessing officer shall affix hereto her certificate stating that it was made pursuant to this resolution and that in making such assessment roll, she has, according to her best judgment, conformed in all respects to the directions contained within this resolution and applicable state statutes. 4, when the special assessment roll has been prepared and filed in the office of the township clerk, therefore said assessment roll has been confirmed, the Township Board shall appoint a time and a place where it will meet, review, and hear any objections to the assessment roll. 5, if the special assessment roll is confirmed, the Township Board intends to hold a public hearing once a year in future years on or before September 30th to reassess property in the special assessment district for the cost in the next year and will provide such notice of hearings in such a manner as prescribed by law. 6, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions insofar as they conflict with the provisions of the within resolution be and the same hereby rescinded. I would so move the resolution.
Motion by Gerald Rowe,
Support Eldridge.
support by Eldridge. Questions or comments? Because this is a SAD, I should probably do a roll call vote on it. So, Mr. Winters, would you concur?
Yes.
If there are no questions, then I will call the vote. Clerk Rowe, Gerald Rowe,
Yes.
Treasurer Eldridge,
Yes.
Trustee Swanson,
Yes.
Trustee Peterson,
Yes.
Trustee Wilson Jr.,
Yes.
and Trustee Newman.
Yes.
And Mr. Newman, can you just state your presence is in Ypsilanti Township, if it is?
Yes. Trustee John Newman, present in Ypsilanti Township.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, you have to vote.
And I just.
Oh, did
and
you?
Supervisor Brenda Stumbo votes yes as well. So it's a the SAD district is created and approved. All in favor, I don't need to say that. All right, let's go on then to new business, which is resolution 2021-14, authorization for the division of platted lots in the East Lawn subdivision. Clerk Gerald Rowe.
There we go. All right, I have resolution number 2021-14, a resolution regarding the division of a platted lot. Resolution authorizing the division of a platted lots in East Lawn subdivision. Whereas the owner of a lots 94, 95, 96 of East Lawn subdivision lying north of the highway right of way has made a request to change lot boundaries as previously approved and recorded. And whereas Township Ordinance number 2000-243, Article 9, Section 11.01 states that upon filing of a petition by the owner or owners of all interest herein with the Township Board, the platted lots, outlot, or parcels of land in existing record plats may be partitioned or divided up upon resolution of the Township Board into not more than 4 parts, each of which shall, in regard to width, depth, and area, conform to the terms and provisions of the Charter Township of Ypsilanti zoning ordinance as amended. And whereas the Township Planning Director has reviewed the division and confirmed that the resulting parcels meet the minimum requirements for lot size and road frontage set forth by Section 2000 of the Ypsilanti Township zoning ordinance. Therefore, it be resolved that the revised property descriptions are approved as follows. Legal descriptions: parcel 1, lot 96 and the north 2 foot of lot 95 East Lawn subdivision. Parcel 2, lot 94 and lot 95 East Lawn subdivision, excluding the north 2 foot of lot 95 and excluding the portion of lot 94 conveyed to the state of Michigan for right of way. I would so move the resolution.
Motion by Gerald Rowe,
Support Swanson.
supported by Swanson. Discussion. This was a request by Habitat for Humanity, and they had one lot and it's splitting it in order to allow another home to be built on the vacant property. We have a motion support and there are no questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is request to approve the amended contract with the Water Resource Commission for the vermin management services in the amount not to exceed $40,000, which is budget in line item 101-956-000-801-000 contingent upon the budget amendment.
Move to approve.
Support Peterson.
Motion Wilson Jr. supported by Peterson. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed to it, Mr. Newman?
No, no, I just,
I'm sorry. Okay.
yeah.
It might have been delayed. My apologies. So all in favor, the motion carries. Number 3 is a request to approve a facility usage agreement with the Ypsilanti National Little League for a 3-year term.
So move Peterson.
Support Eldridge.
We have a motion and support. We had lots of discussion in the work session, and Deputy Supervisor Hines is also on the Zoom call, and he explained a lot of, was able to answer a lot of the questions. He will be updating the board, and like our attorney suggested, doing a look back every year and bringing it to the board. So it was a 5-year agreement. It's now a 3-year agreement, and 1 year is already in process. So again, this is COVID, but I do want to say one thing that I forgot to say in the work session, that John Hines, who is the deputy supervisor, the National League brought to him a concern about the crossing at the railroad tracks and some of the damage that was being done. And he reached out to the railroad company, and I can't believe he got a hold of them. And he did, and they have agreed as part of their safety and security to put a fence along that side of the railroad track. And they actually have federal grants to do it. So the timing was perfect. I really want to just let the board know what John Hines had done, just by reaching out and making a phone call. I was shocked, actually. We do know that further down on the railroad track in the Thurston neighborhood, there's a lot of people that cross over the railroad, and it's prohibited and it's unsafe. But now they're actually looking at doing something about it as a railroad company. But shout out to John, not only for bringing this forward, but to also addressing the issue of the community with that crossing over there. So, any questions, additional questions or comments? See no hands raised. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. The next item is a request to approve a purchase agreement with DTE for the installation of one streetlight to be located at South Harrison Village Lane for Village Grove Apartments camera in the amount of $1,866.02. That's an odd number. Budgeted in line item 101-956-000-926-050, contingent on approval of the budget amendment.
So move Peterson.
Support. Joe Rowe.
Motion Peterson, supported by Giro Rowe. Any questions or comments? No hands are raised. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Clerk Giro Rowe, for your work on this unusual request that has given to you. It's number 5 is a request to authorize circuit court litigation to abate the public nuisances located at 621 Woodlawn and 1093 DeSoto, which is budgeted in line item 101-950-000-801-023.
So moved, Joe Rowe.
We have a motion. Was there a support?
Support Eldridge.
Thank you. We have a motion and support. Questions or comments? This was discussed at length at the work session. Hearing none, I do want to thank the ordinance department and all the work that they do in the attorney's office in bringing these public nuisances forward. But like we always say, this is our last resort. We really want compliance, and I know we reached out to get help also from other agencies to this is our last resort. We have a motion support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 6 is a request to approve the updated job description for the residential services director and a wage increase of $5,000 annually.
So moved, Joe Rowe.
Support Wilson.
We have a motion by Joe Rose, support by Wilson. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item 7 is a request to approve the 2021 agreement with Washtenaw County Road Commission for local road improvements in the amount of $241,853.31 budgeted in line item 101-446-000-818-022 contingent upon our approval of the budget amendment.
So moved, Gerald Rowe.
Support Peterson.
We have a motion by Gerald Rowe, support Peterson. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is budget amendment number 14 or 4. Clerk Gerald Rowe.
Yes, I have a budget amendment number 4 here, and these are for some PTO payouts, road commission agreement, the vermin management contract, the street light that we discussed earlier, and 2 additional PTO payouts. So I have motion to amend the 2021 budget amendment number 4, move to increase the general fund by $284,028 to $9,465,890 and to approve the department line item changes as outlined. I've moved to increase the building department budget by $485 to $873,714 and approve the department line item changes as outlined. Move to increase the law enforcement fund budget by $1,213 to $8,538,507 and to approve the department line item changes as outlined. I so move the budget amendment.
Motion Gerald Rowe,
Support Eldridge.
support Eldridge. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Under authorization and bids, we have the request to award the low bid for the annual playground mulch installation to Superior Ground Cover in the amount of $12,400.50. Budget in line item 101-774-000-818-011.
So move Peterson.
Support Eldridge.
Motion by Peterson, supported by Eldridge to approve. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. There's no other business to come before the board, and there were no board member updates. So a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Support,
Motion Eldridge, support Wilson. Is that what I heard?
yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned at 7:20. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.